twerk, you know what I'm saying, with a back don't move type shit.
This that Batman Joker daily duo comic cons.
I can't do it.
Batman
I'm a
Joker
thick,
daily
y'all
duo
see me, I'm a
comic
thick
cons.
boy.
This that Batman
I'm a
Joker
thick
daily duo
boy.
comic.
Tulsa Comic Book Swap Halloween featuring Tammy Aaron, Jimmy Trammell, Johnny Johnson, Pacheco's Taqueria, Candy Food Truck, JC's Comic Book Lounge, Comic Cons Podcast, Empire Comics, Brad Ashworth.
Dad, you're back in town? Too busy off saving the world.
Well, you know the world doesn't save itself.
I'm gonna do something totally not awkward and make this the first day of the new me. It's time for me to do something meaningful. Where is the justice in pegging a civil problem on a single person trying to do something good?
Overachieve much, Miss Brown? I appreciate your enthusiasm, I really do. But shouldn't you be a little more concerned about your popularity?
What?
When Floozy in a costume says something about a crime boss, and suddenly GCPD is dancing to her tune.
I'll call him in. See if he knows anything about this spoiler character.
They always right. Y'all should have learned. Yeah, this that Batman Joker daily duo comic cons. 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 I'll pop up, break that brother legs. Where is he? Try to run, I'ma hit him with that frisbee. This ain't no pop gun, I'll pop you where your kids be. Clown mask, bloody bad boy, where your friends be. You ain't seen them.
Yo, it's your main man, King Castro X, coming at you guys live and direct with another episode of the Comic Cons podcast. Kids, I have great news for you. Jules isn't here, unfortunately, but guess what? Tomorrow morning, I will be live with Jules at Impulse Creations. Live, as in we'll be there and you can come see us. Not live, as in you can comment in and react to us and say things. Not yet, kids. We don't have the technology. I don't know if the technology's been invented, or maybe our budgets just aren't big enough for that technology. I know it's been invented, kids. We don't have what we need to do that. Anyway, we'll be there with him tomorrow, guys. But today, I have a reoccurring special guest. You know what I mean? Good friend of mine, homie from the Dingus Den. We actually just did an episode over on his channel, out on YouTube now, kids. By the time this drops, you guys probably about 2 weeks out from the episode dropping. Go check it out. We just did the covered the Doomsday special. I got my boy Spencer, aka SF the God, aka SF the Genius, aka SF from the motherfucking Dingus Den, kids, in the building. My brother, welcome in. How are you?
I'm doing great. I'm looking forward to this conversation we're about to have.
I am
It'll be quite
as
interesting.
well. Yes, definitely. Kids, so what we're here to do today is obviously talk about comic books because that's what we do. But this comic book's kind of special to me specifically. You know what I mean? I'm going to kind of give you guys my experience and history with the writer of this book. You know what I mean? And then I'm going to let SF kind of talk and tell us, tell us his experience thus far. And then we'll get into the book and then we'll give you guys our review. Ladies and gentlemen, this comic book is called The Red Ribbon Queen, brought to you by AWA Comics. I'm not as familiar with AWA, I will say that. Now that I've read something from AWA, I'm pretty interested in reading more. It seems very adult, very gritty. But The Red Ribbon Queen was written by Garth Ennis, kids, penciled by Jason Burrows, inked by Guillermo Ortega, and I think colored by Dan Brown. Shout out to all of them guys. But the writer to this book, I'm a humongous fan of, and I feel many of you guys watching at home may also be fans of, even if you don't know who the heck the guy is. I'm sure you know his content. First and foremost, King Castro X's favorite comic book of all time, kids, is The Preacher. right next to The Dark Knight Returns. They're a toss up for the two. Shout out to Frank Miller. But Garth Ennis wrote The Preacher, a phenomenal comic book. If you guys have not read that, go check that out today. I'm sure you can pick it up at your local comic shop. But he's also done more popular things such as, The Boys. He had The Preacher on Hulu for a while. Really cool show. Amongst many, many other things the guy has done. What I love about Garth Ennis is he adds a very adult tone to his books. His humor is often pretty great too in his books. You can catch a lot of that in The Boys as well as Preacher. Man, there's moments in there that are just really, really to me. I wouldn't say X-rated, but just very adult themes, man. He's great. As I said, I've been a big fan for a very long time of Garth Ennis. There's not many people when it comes to comic book writing that compete. For me personally, and this is all personal opinion, I thoroughly enjoy him. As I said, SF, this was your first experience, if I'm not incorrect, outside of watching the series of The Boys. You know what I mean? How what do you think? You went in raw, am I correct? Talk to us about it.
Yeah, I've never read anything from that writer at all. I know the titles. Like I own digitally The Boys. I just haven't gotten around to reading it. I know of Preacher. It's one of those massive stories that like anybody that reads it, that's read it says, "Hey, you need to go read it." And so, and that's something that's on my to read list. So
Definitely.
it's definitely a name I've known about ever since when I started looking into comics, but I've just never gotten around to reading any of his stuff. So this is definitely my first rodeo with this writer, at least. And I don't know what I was expecting going into it, but it was not exactly what I was expecting.
I will say, knowing SF kids behind the scenes, we talk and things like that quite often. And correct me if I'm wrong, he's not much of a horror fan, kids, at all. Uh, you know what I mean? I think you do have a love for like monsters and things of that nature. You know what I mean? Zombies, the swamp thing. I don't know if he's considered a monster, but he's like the creature of the Black Lagoon or
uh,
whatever.
yeah, generally, not
For
so much
sure.
zombies, but generally, yeah.
For sure, for sure. This comic, to me personally speaking, had a bit of a horror element. What do you
Mm.
think?
Uh, Something like that, I guess. I don't know if horror's their first. I think the better word is supernatural.
Supernatural, maybe a little creepy. At least certain things that happen. It's like, yo,
Yeah.
you know what I'm saying? So anyway, kids, we're gonna jump into this book. I'm very excited. I will be upfront and honest. I read issue one probably 2 to 3 weeks ago when it first came out. So you know what I'm saying? I'm a little rocky on that. We just both read issue two, so I'll be more familiar with that one. But luckily, kids, I have it pulled up right here. Not a paid ad, but from readallcomics.com, where you can read all comics for free right here. Go support your local comic stores. But, if you can't make it, check out readallcomics.com. Yo, hit me with a sponsor, my guy. You know what I'm saying? We're out here. Again, Red Ribbon Queen. We're jumping on into it, man. So, starting off the book, man, you got detective or officer. I don't know if she a detective? Detective Sun, I think.
I'm gonna be honest and upfront as well that I'm not familiar with like any of the names.
That's fine.
So
That's fine. I literally just learned her name. She goes by Amy, guys. You got Amy, who's an officer of sorts, going into the office, man, talking to her boss, the commissioner, if you will. You know what I mean, about a case that's happened. A girl's recently went missing, and she's hot on the tail. She's trying to figure out, like what's going on. You know what I mean. Um, and with that, she has a suspect, and her suspect is another officer that goes by the name of I think Detective Connolly. Connolly, kids.
sounds right.
And basically what they get into is they start talking about how Detective Connolly, as this lady was captured that she's looking for. She was captured, she'd been saved, and then she went missing again. So what happens is, Detective Connolly was a part of the SWAT team.
Who's the
um
leader?
the
Commander.
lead Correct. Yeah. He was the leader of the SWAT team that went and basically freed this woman, from being captive. I think she was held by some kind of like serial killer type guy. You know what I'm saying? But after Detective Connolly saved her, he continued to like show up to the hospital and just like wait outside or stand by her bed, which is like really sweet, but also like really creepy. Like, I don't know you. Like, why? Who is this guy? Why is he always here? And then he would continue to press a little bit. Am I correct? Like, you know what I mean? Little hints of like I like you, but without saying I like you. You know what I mean? Um, anyway, with this whole opening few panels, man, the commissioner's basically explaining to her, like, I think you should basically leave this alone. This isn't a good move, but as many great detectives do, she pushes. She's like, no, I'm gonna go look into this, I'm gonna check this out. You know what I'm saying? So with that being said, she hold on, guys, bear with me here. I'm making sure I'm telling you the right story. She ends up going to check out the she has a friend down at the morgue, right?
Right.
You
Yes.
following me here?
Yes.
For sure. I'm kind, like I said, guys, I am raw on issue 1 right now. So like as I'm telling you this, peep the beautiful background. My screen has went down. So peep that. It's gorgeous. I don't know where this is, but there's that. So guys, we're pulling it together as we go, but we got this. Anyway, she goes and visits her friend at the morgue, which it seems as if they have a little, thing going on, kind of. But I don't know if that'll come out later or what's going on. But she goes to talk to and SF. If you have anything, feel free to jump in as well, brother. I am running with this to get to issue
All
2,
right.
my friend.
All right.
Not that I didn't enjoy. I really enjoyed issue 1, but like I said, guys, we're running in raw. I just want to. There's
Yeah.
a lamb. This is wild. Anyway, she goes and talks to him. Apparently, the body, like I said, so the lady, I hope you guys are following me. The lady was saved and then went missing. Now they found the body. The body is here at the morgue, and she's going to analyze. She's going to go check out the body and see what her morgue friend who analyzes the bodies. I don't know what those people are called, but she's going to go, check him out and see what he has to say. You know what I mean? Uh, they have their little conversation. SF, am I missing anything in this?
I believe it's in this conversation here where they set up that there's like multiple victims here or something as well. Like there's other bodies and stuff. I think it's in this one. I don't remember.
Like connected bodies?
Yeah, like because they're trying to line up this case of being like, oh, how could this have been done, or how she died and whatnot.
For sure.
Because I believe it's from like a knife wound or something, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they're
Correct.
talking about like it was in a place that'd be like very hard to puncture, and so they're trying to line up of it being like, well, this whole thing it just paints a bad picture to Connolly. That's
100%.
essentially what this whole thing does. The only thing I'll add on is there's this in the last scene before the morgue, before they switch over to the morgue, there is this part where you saw like this like phone recording, and that was kind of like it like painted a really bad picture of like something out of context.
So we can go back to that phone scene really quick. You know what I mean? Just to further paint that context. Did the media know? Bear with me. I'm getting to it.
Yeah.
Okay, so here's the words from the phone scene, kids. I've told you I'm okay, I'm fine. This is Connolly basically pressing on said victim.
Right.
I don't know her name, guys. But this is Connolly pressing on the said
Belle.
victim.
I could be wrong.
Yes, correct. Belle, Belle. I've told you I'm okay, I'm fine. Why do you keep? I just want to be here. Be sure, sweetheart. Could you please call me, not call me that? And could you take your hand off my arm? Okay, take it easy. You've been through some shit. I get it. You're under a lot of stress. Yes, because of you. This is them obviously going back and forth with dialogue. Excuse me, why are you calling me that? He says a very offensive statement to a random guy there. were you there for her when it mattered? Were you in that fucking basement? Because I didn't see you there or whatever. So, like, dude's just mad creepy, man. He's pressing up really heavy. Okay, you realize you're being completely ridiculous, right? Bella, I saw you that night. I saw you as soon as I came through that door, and I was there for you afterwards, too. And I know you still need help. Okay, how would you know what she needs? Okay, so this is her friend, by the way, who was videoing
Right.
this thing. You find this out.
Next issue.
Spoiler alert, kids.
Spoiler
Next
alert,
issue.
Yeah.
Because of what's between us, because of what we shared, I know whatever she needs. I know whatever she needs. She's not about to get it from you. Oh, Jesus Christ. Anyway, it's not a good scene. It's not good at all. It does definitely make Detective Connolly look like a psycho nut.
The big thing here that you literally missed, if we would have just kept going a little further, is it ends with her saying, "Oh Jesus Christ, I need Her Majesty. That's what I need." But we'll get back to that.
Which is very big.
Yes.
Hint, hint, Her Majesty, title of the comic. But you guys will see. You guys will see. Some things are to come. Some things are to come. So, as I stated, all of that happens. We finished the conversation at the morgue. Detective Connolly is looking really fishy. We are flying through issue 1, guys. You got Detective Sun on her way back home. You know what I'm saying? And as she walks into the door, who does she see in her house? SF.
It's this Connolly guy just sitting on her couch there. When she opens up and just comes walking in.
Very uncomfortable feeling, especially I imagine being a lady. Detective Connolly, I will say, looks a bit Punisher-esque to me. He could definitely have been Punisher. He does, which is cool
I see.
because
I
go ahead.
I didn't think about that first, but I definitely see it.
Yeah, he looks like Garth Ennis and Steve Dillon's run of Punisher Max a little bit. Anyway, so he walks in and Detective Connolly's basically on some like, yo, you've been investigating this case, and I'm probably misquoting a lot, kids. Go read the issue; it's a good book. But anyway, basically, like you've been throwing my name around, like what's good type shit. You know what I mean? And he basically, if I'm not incorrect, correct me if I'm wrong, because I'm not reading any of this as I'm talking. This is all off head, kids.
Good.
He's basically going like tells her like, yo, back the fuck up type shit. You know what I mean?
Pretty much.
Yeah.
I read it as like his intent wasn't to actually do anything to her, but it was just
that little threat.
A massive threat.
Exactly.
It was a threat that he wanted to send across to be like, hey, just back off of me, so things don't get any worse.
He's also denying, his involvement with, the death of said girl. You know what I'm saying? This does happen. In the words of, I didn't kill that ungrateful little bitch. That's uncomfortable. You know what I mean? But yes, he is denying it. Anyway, he leaves the apartment. Detective Sun gives a call to the commissioner, and she's like, yo, why'd you tell him? Dude was in my house, basically. You know what I mean? He's still warning her off, like, you don't want to play this game. This isn't for you. It's not safe. Usually 9 times out of 10, when the commissioner's telling you stay the fuck away, it's either time to strap on your Batman boots, kids, or get the fuck out, because it's not going to be a good time for you. Anyway, I think is she headed to a case, or what's going on here? Do you remember?
So she was kind of feeling a little bit petty, it seemed like. It was like, you know what? He goes to my house to play this game. I'm going to come to his house now.
Okay, so she's headed to his house. Thank you for that.
He's going to his house, and yeah, you just start hearing all these like screams start coming out from there as she gets closer. And
so literally panel for panel, she's walking, she sees a rando, and then the bubble here says, oh my fucking god, all caps, exclamation point, and then a bunch of ahs, and she's like, Jesus Christ. She busts the door open. Connolly, it's Amy's son, I'm coming in, okay? I'm entering the house. Completely different than the approach she was gonna take. But she busts in. Oh no, she sees she hears more yelling coming down from what it looks to be the basement area, and these weird strands going down the stairs. Do you want to talk about what these strands are, what they seem to be?
I really like the way they introduced what these are. I feel like it was well told here in this page, because yeah, you get this shot of the stairs, and there's just you're right, like it looks like these flat strands, and
Hmm.
so anyway, she kind of like picks it up, kind of like loosely,
The
where like
fear in her
one go
face.
over her finger, right? And so there's a strand on her finger, and then the next panel, you see that the strand falls off, and there's like blood that came off of it. And
I
so
love she just nah exclamation
she's like,
point
"Oh,
like
no."
nah
Right.
nah. So what these are, kids, are pieces of flesh. The blood left
Yeah.
over. It's just little hint ribbons of skin
Mhm.
just around the staircase area. Anyway, she's Miss Connolly, his family or whatever. They're in a little room down in the basement area. She opens up the door, and then there's the mom and the two children. Just God, the pain and fear in the eyes of the
Mhm.
daughter and the mother in this scene, and then the son just holding the mom, crying his little eyes out is really intense. It's really impactful.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? And then you see Detective Son kind of look off to the side, kids, and just jaw drop as you see there. In all of his glory, Detective Connolly just losing ribbons of flesh. I can't even describe it. If you want to tend to try your best to describe the horror in this picture, it's graphic, kids. It's bloody as could be, and it's intense. Well, what do you think?
Yeah, it gives me that vibe to where it's like there is kind of like this supernatural element to where
Mhm.
like these strands are all, or these ribbons of skin, they're all, like partially peeled off around the body. Some of it's still connected to them, and they like all twirl around as they're like
Just floating.
just floating around, and like, yeah, it's not a beautiful sight at all.
It's not. Artistically, it's done really well. Really, really
Yeah.
well. I was a big fan of it. Uh the book ends, you know what I mean, basically with him muttering some words. You can try to make out what he's saying if you want, SF.
I
Uh
I tried to figure out what this could have meant at all. I was like, what does this mean? I have no idea. I spent like a
yeah.
solid minute. I was like, I got nothing.
Yeah, I don't know what he's saying, but Detective Connolly just there in shock, or not Connolly, Son just there in shock, and then as the book is about to end, it goes back into when she's walking up to the house, and that random person you see is Bella herself, kids. Bella is, from what we think, it looks like back from the dead. And she just has a stern look on her face, and she just keeps on walking. Uh, in the book, then it goes back into that very moment of her down there in the room, Detective Son, and she just has a realization. She's like, no fucking way, basically. And then it says continued, kids. What do you think, SF? Talk to me about that ending panel, and then we'll kind of review that, and then we'll move
Mhm.
forward.
No, that was definitely very just just what a right way to, I guess, sum it up, right? It's like this overall issue was just a slower issue, right? Because it was a lot of setup, right?
Definitely.
Um, and so I feel like nothing really happened until that end, but it's the kind of detective story that it is, right? Having a lot to set up, setting up a narrative, and then as any detective, well, I should say, I guess, good detective story, there's that big twist, right? To where it's like, oh no, that's whatever was being set up. It's not the way you think it is, and so
Definitely. It's
um,
definitely not what I had
when
expected.
right, when looking back through it, I didn't realize that you actually saw that one character in that one panel walking on the way.
Talking about Bella
Bella,
or Belle
yes,
or whatever,
it's Bella. Now that I looked at it, yeah.
for
But
sure.
anyway, so
What
yeah,
a
very
what a
interesting there.
what a nice nod to what's to come, right? Just that you see the person in the purple hoodie early on, or a panel or two above when she's walking up to the house, and then they kind
Yeah,
of pay it back. They're like, "Oh, that was somebody. That was somebody really big,
yeah.
kids. That was, Belle. What was she doing there? I thought she was dead." Um, Pretty intense, man. For the first issue, again, being familiar with Steve Dillon's or Garth Ennis's work. Sorry, Garth Ennis' work. Uh, I should have expected maybe a little bit, but it was intense. It was very graphic. I love the buildup of the story. Issue 1 had me personally very interested, but this is right up my alley. Messed up stuff, all in a combo, extra bloody detective stories. I love that kind of stuff. SF, you went into issue 1 very raw. Had no idea what to expect. Give me your overall feelings, thoughts, and just your review of issue 1, and then we'll jump on issue 2, my brother.
Yeah, so for me, it's something, not the usual kind of story I read, but I
Right.
always do like
I owed you one
going
or two.
out and adventure. Yeah, I like to explore sorts of different stories, and so, um, something I definitely appreciate, right? Like, honestly, right after I read this first issue, I had texted one of my friends, and I was like, "Hey, I just read a comic that, knowing your taste personally, you'd love this." And
Mhm.
so, but even yeah, but overall, though, I do think it was pretty well done. I'd say, with having, you had that whole lead up. I mean, yeah, it was just a solid first issue that did its job, right? You have a lot of that set up, as we
Definitely.
talked about with everything with Connolly, and for me, first time reading, a lot of that kind of like blurred together to where, like, nothing really happened here till the end. But once you hit to this end spot, it's kind of like, oh wow, holy crap! But as with, I feel like a lot of detective stories, it's like you don't gain a lot more appreciation until after you start looking back through it, because then you
Gosh,
start
that's
picking
true.
up a lot more on those Easter eggs, sort of, that are not Easter eggs, but story drops and stuff like that, story hints, foreshadowings, whatever, right?
Definitely.
One thing could mean something to lead you think something, but it really means something completely different, right? And so, even rereading issue, or not rereading, but looking through back of parts of issue 1 while talking about it, while after reading issue 2, it's kind of like, huh, there's a couple things
Definitely.
here and there that click differently. And
I
so,
think
for something like that, even though the story is only 2 out of 8 issues in, I
mhm,
think that's a pretty good, I think that's a pretty good thing to say about it, right? Um,
100%. I feel like
but
that's a part of, like, kinda like you said, but I guess I'm gonna change it up a little bit. Just, like, what makes detective stories so good is you don't, it takes those looking back moments, right? Detective stories are often just so layered with stuff, and I think that's what makes them so good, and there's so many different layers, they're so in depth, and I think that's what this issue did really well, man. It really added some elements that I feel are going to awake throughout the story. You know what I'm saying?
absolutely, for sure.
So, anyway, moving on, kids. Here we are, Red Ribbon Queen issue 2. I want to point out this cover. I don't know what cover you have or you're looking at. The cover I have is a hand
Very gruesome.
that's, yeah, seemed to be holding a gun, and it's just being ripped all into ribbons, kids, all into shreds. And it's completely into it's bloody as can be, and I love every bit of it. So issue 2 again, Garth Ennis, Jason Burrows, Guillermo Ortego, and Dan Brown, kids, killing the game. The scene starts off with Detective Son, just wide-eyed as can be, sitting on the front porch of the house as cops and everybody else have arrived, the ambulance, and here's the commissioner bent over, leaned over near her, I should say, kids, not just bent over for no apparent reason. That'd be pretty
Just move
weird.
on. Just move on.
uh, Digging a hole here. Just talking to her, Amy. She's like, she just doesn't even say, just, you know what I'm saying? Like, you could tell she's in her head. Amy, the kids are catatonic and the mother's had to be sedated. What happened here? You know what I'm saying? Just like, it's a scene that nobody's ever really dealt with. Could potentially be one of the most gruesome scenes that he's even seen on his career, being the commissioner. I mean, someone did that to him, okay, with a knife or something, but it must have taken hours or days, and the family, I guess they were made to watch, but I don't know. And she's just still looking, just puzzled. She says, I don't know. She's puzzled, man. She doesn't even know what happened. He was like that when I got there. So then it says, basically issue 2, to say I saw something impossible, and you see him laid out on the floor, just ripped to shreds. Him being Detective Connolly, guts, blood all over the place. His whole face ripped off, one eyeball. It's intense, kids. Completely insane.
This this just whole picture, right? Or I should say more accurately, the spread, right? It's very unsettling. Like it's one of those things to where it's like I don't mind like comical gore, I'd say, right? Like Doom,
Right.
Mortal Kombat, right? Like stuff like that. Like those are two of my favorite gaming franchises. Stuff that I really like. And so uh but when it turns into something kind of more realistic, it's like I don't like it. And so like
Right.
at the end of first issue, it whenever you mainly saw him as a whole thing, it's like he was there kind of more just sitting with all the ribbons everywhere, or
Mhm.
versus here it's all laid out and it's really like, oh, this is just so gruesome here, right? You can see that just a red bone, bloodied bones everywhere, and just the skin ripped and into all the ribbons everywhere. There's like
Old flesh.
out from everywhere, and the bones and the just the gore there. It's very unsettling, and I really this um even looking at it now, it makes me feel uneasy. Not as uneasy as I was last night, but it's
Definitely. This is where I was talking about it has an element of horror, and specifically, I mean, the body horror element is very much there. It's very graphic. It's brutal, kids. I love it. This is what I live for. This does it for me, man. It's great. It's phenomenal. I'm a big horror fan, so this is phenomenal. Big gore fan, but I knew going into this when I told SF to read this, like this is gonna rub them some wrong ways. But moving on, kids, moving on. I'm glad you've read it. You know what I mean? I'm glad you're here with me. Uh, anyway, moving on. The commissioner, I don't know this man's name. The commissioner's still prying, like, yo, what happened? He says, I think you might be in shock. She's like, no, I think the shock of what I saw kind of shocked me out of the shock. And he's like, what? Yeah, that doesn't make any sense. And then she goes into like, yo, why'd you tell Connolly like that I was gonna, or that I was looking into Bell? For Rhinebeck or whatever this guy's name is, and I think that's her friend. And he's like, Amy, come on, you're not thinking straight. She hits him with like, dude, I know you're not telling me the truth. Basically, what's going on? And in that very moment, you see, what is it, 4 other detectives walking up the block, and he seems to get a little shook. Am I right?
yeah, it's very yeah. I mean, pretty much. Yeah, I don't have much more to add on there, but
These look
yeah.
like some bad dudes as well. They look pretty tough.
hmm
You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's really
Uh,
interesting because I do feel like I guess we learned a little more about them later on, I believe.
yeah.
Because I don't think it's right at this moment, but at the same time, I feel like these dudes were kind of also a little bit hinted at in last issue as well. We
Mhm.
just don't see them until here.
Definitely. Definitely. Yeah, I definitely agree with you. As I said, he's looking a bit shook. And so he basically goes into telling Detective Son, Amy, if you will, yo, like chill right now. Like we can handle this later. We should get out of here. First off, there's no reason at all that you should be on this scene. You know what I'm saying? You should not be here. This is going to go very bad if we are seen here. So with that being said, I mean they both leave the scene. She leaves the scene with her telling him like I'm fine on my own. I don't need your help. She doesn't trust him anymore. You know, how could you trust him after, him letting Connolly in on what's going on here? You know what I'm saying?
Right.
And as she's walking away, she sees she has 5 missed calls from Clayton. Clayton being the guy that works at the morgue. You know what I'm saying? So she goes back to the morgue. They're both outside of the hospital across the street. And he can tell she's shook. You know what I mean? But she asks what's going on across the street. And he explains we're closed for the day. I've been told to go home but not leave town. She's like, seriously? A dead person's gone missing from a city morgue is no a dead person going missing from the city morgue is no small thing. Sorry, kids. Crime scenes are going all over the place with a fine tooth and a comb. I myself have been interviewed twice. I think I convinced them that I didn't sell her body to body snatchers. So the her that they're talking about is Belle. Kids, Belle has got up and left the morgue. They go into
Right.
here to they go into the night shift hearing just random clicks throughout the night. You know what I'm saying? But it wasn't nothing that alerted him enough to get up or go do his job or anything like that. But what these random clicks were the locks being broken, but not from the inside, but from the outside, as if, or not from the outside, but from the inside, as if somebody was just twisting the handle and the locks were opening. You know what I'm saying? Which is creepy, man. Definitely supernatural, as you said, SF. You know what I'm saying? He goes into basically asking her like, "Yo, what's going on with you though? Like, what's up?" And this is where we get the she explains like, "I'm not sure how to describe the situation. I basically don't know what's going on." But this is where she goes to say, "I've been trying to figure out how to say I saw something impossible." Cue the title of the book, and someone impossible right before it happened. If I told you my captain would have me locked up, but part of me's not sure I'd blame him. But and he's like, "Try me." Anyway, it skips off to a next panel, but she's basically hitting that like, "Yo, I saw her at the scene." You know, correct? I think I'm right.
Yes. Yeah.
So she ends up going and checking up on her Belle's friend who recorded the video, Brian. As she gets there, she just kind of barges into his house, and she says, "Brian, I got your message," and he said, "Yeah, I didn't know anything." And she's like, "About the Majesty, I had some other questions I wanted to ask you." And he's like, "Yo, no, I'm good." Basically, trying to get her out of the house. He says his roommate's going to be home shortly. She goes into asking, bear with me. "You told me he came to see her in the hospital. Then he wouldn't leave her alone when she came back to the city. What I'm wondering is, might he have done something else, something that really, really, really upset her? Brian, what would it take? What would it take to, I don't know, maybe push Belle a little far? She feels as if Connolly had upset her in another way, done something else. You know what I mean? There's more to the story than meets the eye, right?" But he goes into saying, "Look, I told you what I know. I listened to the thing from the bar. I heard her say it's her Majesty, but I don't know what it means. That's not what I'm talking about. Come on. She swore to me. She swore me to secrecy. I promise." Then she said, Detective Sun says, "Yeah, you don't really get to do that with the NYPD. Bear with me here. Trying to read, kids. Like a couple of years back when they go into some kind of touchy stuff with protesting and things like that. What were your thoughts there, SF, in this conversation?"
When I read this initially, I kind of just like glossed over it. I mean, obviously, I get showing they have some sort of history here, but
Correct.
um, I don't feel like it's very important as of in the moment. I was kind of just reading through and
Correct.
being like, okay, what's next? You know what I mean? Especially when and not saying this comic does a bad job of it, because it definitely integrates it a lot better than other comics. But I've read enough to where it's like, okay, anytime you bring up, those like certain sort of protests and movements, like right after it all happened, real a couple of years ago, a lot of comics really integrated it. And personally, some stuff that I was looking forward to kind of like had it in there as like it was really upfront on your face. But anyway, besides the point, though, it's just like I was like, okay, I'm just ready to move on and see what's next.
I'd agree. I didn't feel it was the most important to the story. I feel it's maybe important, cool
Maybe
to see
later
them
on.
addressing current topics and things like that. But moving on, he goes into explaining though that Belle decided, off of influence from Brian here, that she's going to try to get a recording of Connolly and get him to say something incriminating, basically, which they both warned her off of doing alone. Switching panels here, you see not Connolly, you see Belle and Brian at the bar, and she's basically going into explaining that she did it and he's going to get what he deserved, right?
Yeah.
So from that moving on, they don't necessarily know what he deserved means. They don't know what happened. He says he walked back. That was the conversation they had, and then he came back to her home a couple days later, and she was dead. And basically, he doesn't know what happened from there. You know what I'm saying? So they go into another panel with Detective Sun back in the commissioner's office, and them arguing. Trying to remember. I said there has to be more to you selling me out. There has to be more to you selling me out to Connolly than just you're burnout, terrified for this pension. And the commissioner's very frustrated with that. Like, who the fuck do you think you are? They go into some more history of, I guess, a while back, Detective Sun had a body that she caught as an officer, and she goes into explaining that Go ahead.
It's really interesting just the way this whole story's been told, including issue 1, right? There's also all this history that we're being told, um, that we don't explicitly see, right? It's almost as if, like, kind of how you do, I guess. I don't know if this is the best way to put it, but it's just like what's coming to my head is like w- you're almost as if it's kind of like this story is kind of like you're being thrown into a second act in a way to where like a
Mm,
lot of this first act initial setup or what's pre what is it, preludes or
prelude. I definitely can
stuff
see
like
that.
that. We don't there's a lot of this stuff that we're just not seeing here that's being hinted out kind of for the most part a natural way in their conversations, I feel like.
100%. I definitely agree with that. You know what I mean? Especially it seems as if so much has already happened, right? Maybe not being involved with the main story,
Right.
not with
Exactly.
the Bell and Connolly situation, but clearly
Right.
there's a lot of history with Detective Sun. She's done other things, other stuff has
Mhm.
happened. Um,
Yeah, lots of things that's been hinted at with every character. Like even every person she talks to, it's like they've had seemingly it's like people she's known for years, right? Is the vibe I get,
right,
right? Between the
definitely,
commissioner or even Connolly, having being an acquaintance at the very least.
definitely.
Um,
I
and then
want to
even hints with her character as we go through too, because we
definitely.
don't really know a lot about her character other than it's like she seems to be wanting to do the good thing, right? She's calling out on people's bullshit here, like you're saying with the commissioner, but like we don't know anything else about her.
I will
Um,
say it's building character. And with
mhm,
that being said, I want to end off this particular panel before we transition, reading just
mhm,
the last little bit that was said here. Whenever she caught that body, kids, whenever she, I guess, shot somebody on duty and, had to deal with it, she says, this is the story he's telling back to her, basically recollecting what had happened. I thought only white cops walked away from things like this, Captain. And he goes into this is what she had said, and then he goes into saying, I'm sorry I told him about you, Amy. He told me he wanted to know who was handling the Rhinebeck girl's death. I'm particularly sorry because it means you won't trust me now. I hate that. And then she goes into saying it's entitled pieces of shit like him and what they think they can get away with. And then it transitions over to a scene of her in the bathroom, listening to a voicemail. Hello, Amy, it's Sarah. She's like, fuck. So as usual, I guess I'm calling you. I'm free all week except Friday and Saturday and Monday. I need Thursday or I need to make Thursday an early night. So I guess that's one too. I don't know who Sarah is. Do you know who Sarah is?
that's not one I know right offhand,
I
unless
don't.
it's
Yeah, I don't think we're gonna get into. We got into Sarah in issues 1 and 2. I think that's gonna be a follow up in issue 3, kids. So stay tuned for that. Out of nowhere, though, comes those 4 detectives. Well, it's 2 of the detectives that we saw earlier. At the beginning of the issue, I thought it was issue 1 for a second. At the beginning of the issue, they barge into the bathroom, and they're basically like, "Yo, where's your sidearm? What'd you have to do with Connolly's death?" They think she's the one that killed Connolly. They think she had something to do with it. The conversation gets very heated. She throws a punch or uh a palm, if you will. And he punches her. One of the guys, the bald guy, punches her in the tummy. She fucks up his tongue. His partner's like, "Yo, what are we doing here? Like, we weren't going to do all this. We just wanted to figure out like basically what's going on with Detective Connolly." He basically beats the hell out of her, and his partner hops back in the way, and he's like, "Yo, dude, we were trying to again figure out what was going on with Detective Connolly." He says, "You little prick, you know how far I go back with Keith Connolly? You think I'm gonna sit still while some cunt just fucking butchers him? You." And his face goes into a kind of a state of shock, and he's like, "Joe," I guess that's the guy's name. And then out of
Mhm.
nowhere, Ribbons, guys. Ribbons just start coming off of both Joe and this other guy's skin, and they start getting shredded up. And Detective Sun's just sitting there, in awe as to what's happening. She's like, "Oh fuck!" And the skin is just coming off, guys. It's super, super bloody. And next thing you know, man, you see in the background a pair of legs. She looks back, and there she is, Bella. You know what I mean? Sitting there, and she's like, "Bella, for Christ's sake, make it stop." And she's like, she doesn't listen. Once you say yes, you've let her in. And then you better be very careful what you think and who you think about from now to the end of time. And it just shows the two detectives shred. And she's like, "Oh my God, don't, just wait." And she said, and Bella looks back and says, "Come find me." And that's the end of the issue. What do you think, SF? How you feeling, man, on that last little bit? And then we'll review this issue and everything as a whole, man.
Yeah. So as far as just this end, right? It's we see more of that gruesome action. Not only is it one person, but two, right? So doubled up from last issue.
Right.
And here we actually see it more, like a lot more in action, right? Like we see the beginning of it as being starting to tear off seemingly on its own, and then being like, "Oh, Bella's doing this," and then literally being like, "Whoa, come and find me," being like, "What in the world," right?
Right.
So it's going to be very interesting to see how this goes, and especially when you pick it up off the next issue, right? Because considering that they're on the precinct here, I believe, right?
Right.
It's
So
going to be like, wait, there's this stuff going on. How is she just going to be able to walk out and be normal here?
100%. I didn't even think of that. That's a great question.
That's the biggest thing I'm curious about, because she's like, I wonder if she has more things that she could do other than just these supernatural.
Right.
Like,
Kind of like
there's something else. Like, if there's somehow how she could just kind of like get away easily.
That's what I was thinking. Kind of like a spirit, just
through
maybe
abilities.
disappear, or
Yeah, who knows? Right?
100%. One of the things I'm concerned with for Amy here, for Detective Sun, is that if she did just disappear, like, it looks like you're the one. You did this. Like, you have
Oh,
something very
yeah.
big to do with it. You're in
Yeah.
the middle of the precinct. These two detectives just die. Like, not just die, not even just die, my friend. They
Well,
are
she was
shredded.
already put in a bad spot by the end of the last issue, because that's the whole reason why this whole confrontation began.
It looks fishy. It's fishy. Why were you there? You
Right?
know what I'm saying?
And so it's a very bad look to where, the guy that confronts her about, "Hey, what did you do to my friend?" Because that's all he knows, is that's the last person that was seen there, right? No
100%.
mention that, the only person that knows about Bella is Amy. So
100%, man. So, and yeah, she hasn't told anybody that she saw Bell. I don't think she told I don't remember his name, the guy at the
Clayton?
morgue.
I was trying to
Clayton,
remember if
maybe?
she did or not. I don't remember. That's a
It
great
it
question.
it cut off. She basically just explained like, "Yo,
You're
saw
right. You're right, because they hinted at it being like a "here's everything that happened" sort of deal.
100%."
So
So,
who knows? I'd
I
assume that I read it as maybe that'd be the one person that she's comfortable enough with to actually tell, but who knows until later on.
we'll see. We'll see. I'm definitely excited. I'm into the book, man. I really liked it. Um Again, this is right up my alley, SF. I know this isn't your normal read, but how do you feel, man? Will you be reading issue 3? Um, I'll probably be pestering you about reading issue 3 to talk about it again, but like just on your own outside of Comic-Con's podcast, you know what I'm saying? Like, would this be something after you've read issues 1 and 2? Is this a story that you'd want to see to the end? 8 issues.
It's something I definitely consider.
Mhm.
The biggest, I'd look into it. Right, it's one of those things where it's not one of those when I see a new issues out being like, let me make sure I can go ahead and read this right away. Right.
Right.
But it's one of those to where it's like the story does legitimately intrigue me enough to where I'd be
Mhm.
like, okay, yeah, I'll give this the next one a read soon. Like, our first one was Void Rivals, and that was something I
I
really
need to catch
enjoyed
up on.
too. And I need to.
Mhm.
They just released issue 4 of that, so that's something more in my wheelhouse. So I'd like read that first, but this would be like, okay, I'll go read the next one of this after or something like that.
For sure, for sure. It's definitely not everybody's cup of tea. You know what I mean? This book
Oh,
here,
yeah, sure, yeah,
which I get, but it's very much my cup,
yeah.
man, and
I
I'm
mean,
taking every sip.
right. So something about it too is like you. I feel like to an extent you need to also learn being like, even if something's not your cup of tea, you still at least recognize that it's well done.
Well done, correct.
And so, And with me liking to explore different things, something's good. It's like, maybe it'll turn me on to being like, okay, maybe I'll check out other stories that's like this, that's really well done, right? Like there's been several like ideas, characters, settings, whatever, anything where that's I've just personally never really been that big of into, but
Mhm.
a real written story I can be like really into it, right?
100%.
So,
And I will say, since we're on air, you know what I mean? I will go ahead and say this, that the reason that's one of the reasons I wanted to show you this book. It seems as if the past 2 times we've done stuff together, either on Comic Con's podcast or even over there at the Comic Club, you have personally introduced me, and this is the
right.
beautiful thing about comic books and even content in general, kids, is there's something out there for everybody, and there's stuff you don't know is out there for you. SF has introduced me to multiple books as of recent times that I would have never ever picked up on my own. And now that I have, Void Rivals being one of them, I'm a fan of Hulk. Never read a single Hulk book. I think those issues are out. The Hulk, or I think that those episodes are out. Guys, you know what I'm saying? You've introduced me to books that have like really piqued my interest where it's like, oh, now I think I want to read these things. And so I had to show you something new as well today. It was kind of a returning of the favor. You know what I mean?
Right.
That's kind of what happened today. And go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say that while you were saying all that, you kind of remind me of another point here too, to where it's like, I feel like a lot of times when people just say comics, right? People just think, oh, Marvel, DC, your traditional
Wonderoos and
superheroes,
capes.
right?
Yes.
Right, exactly. But I think this is something like, this is at like the complete opposite end of the spectrum, right?
Yes,
Like,
sir.
they, and so that's something that I think is just important to bring up, is that there's so much more variety to comics than a lot of people, I think, realize upon initial first glance.
There.
I definitely am a believer that, there's a comic for everybody. Just because I think every story base is covered, right? Sure, majority is superheroes doesn't mean that there's not other kinds of comics for you to go enjoy, though.
100%. I too stand with you on that front very heavily. I'm a big fan of crime comics, detective type comics. And then I've recently, shout out to my wife, man. She's a big collector of the horror books, and that's how I found myself here. It's a perfect mixture between a hint of horror with a detective story. Um, I agree with you 100%, man. There is a comic out there for everybody. You know what I mean? There's a niche comic for you. I promise it. That's out there. I promise it exists. And I feel like that even translates out to. It's often spoke upon with anime. A lot of people shut down. Not to get too off topic, kids, but you got me in my feels, so I got to say this, SF. Um, Oftentimes people shut down anime. They think it's all fighting and this and that, but there's a genre. There's so many different genres of anime.
Yeah,
There's so many different genres of comic books, kids.
for sure.
There's got to be one out there for you. You don't got to just keep it Wonderoos and capes, man. There's so much more. It's not all spandex. You know what I mean? There's so much more, even in your superhero genre. It's not all happy-go-lucky all the time. There's so many different ways these people tell stories. Again, I don't want to get too off topic. To take it back to this comic, I thought it was very well written. Shout out to Garth Ennis, and I really enjoyed the art as well. The art was cool. It's a simple look, but it does its job, especially in these gory moments. They're super brutal and well done. I really enjoyed the book, man, and I'm looking forward to issue 3. Hopefully, kids, we get SF, or he's over here, SF back in the building for old issue 3. You know what I mean? But it was definitely good, man. SF, I really enjoyed having you here. You have some special things going on over in your neck of the woods, or in your den, should I say. You've been doing a whole lot of work, man. Is there anything you want to promote? Anything you want to talk about really quick? Anything you want to tell people that's coming? Feel free, let them know. This is your platform, baby.
All right, yeah. Personally, in my little dingus den, as you talked about earlier, the Action Comics Presents Doomsday Special Comic Club just released
True
the
indeed.
same day that we recorded this.
Very
And
valid.
so go
2
check
weeks
that
ago,
out.
kids.
And then if that's the case, probably also out will also be the next comic club that me and Castro would have recorded, hopefully, if all plans go according to plan. Covering the first issue of Tom King's new Wonder Woman. That'll be
Yes.
quite an interesting discussion. Stay tuned to comic club over on the Dingus Den for Y.
I'm
And then I
very
also
excited.
have, and so that Doomsday and this Wonder Woman comic is just a comic club where we focus on one issue each. Smaller, little bite-sized ones. But I also have another big one for anybody. I've done Crisis on Infinite Earths
Mhm.
3-part series. I'm going over the massive behemoth, all 12 issues spread over 3 parts. And we'll just say I'm planning another one of those behemoths of splitting up another one of my favorite comic series of all time.
True
Splitting
indeed.
it up, and so I'm going to be very,
I want to give spoilers so
very
bad,
excited. Right?
but I'm hyped. That's dope. That's dope. Uh, I will say, kids, go check out the Dingus Den, man, on YouTube. All the socials are sure to be on the way, kids. I thoroughly enjoy the content over there, guys, and I think you will as well. I enjoy even more so being a part of the content. It's a blast just talking comics with you, SF. You have a beautiful mind for
Absolutely.
comics, man. So, so much more to come, kids. Do you want to plug up your social specifically, really quick, or I think it's just at the Dingus Den?
Yeah, at Dinguston on both Twitter or so-called X now, whatever the hell Musk wants to call it, and
Shout out to Musk.
at Dinguston on YouTube as well, and soon to be coming to other socials as well as I start taking, I guess, more of the social sharing a little more seriously.
Very true. Soon to come, kids. Ladies and gentlemen, you guys know where to find us. Comic Cons podcast on all streaming platforms and on all socials, kids. Anywhere you need a podcast, you can get you some Comic Cons there. Anywhere you want to look at some stuff about the Comic Cons on social media, we're there. Kids, check us out. That's COMICKHANS. That means King Cons podcast, kids all over the world. Check us out. Plenty of new content coming. Been working on React videos. I think we may be recording a React video after this. I don't know. We're going to check time, but soon to come more of that. Let us know if there's something you guys want us to react to, or if there's a comic book you want us to read and go over and just give you guys our opinions. No, they do not matter. We love giving them to you guys. Be sure to check us out. I'll be recording a new episode with Jules tomorrow, so you guys will get some more of the beautiful young master Jules. Guys, it's been a little bit since I've got to spend time with him. I miss my boy. Jules, shout out to you. Go check out Sock's On or Off podcast as well, guys. I don't know if you guys know, but he has his own podcast. He does every week, maybe 2 or 3 times a week. Sometimes a kid podcasts, like I did in my youngin' days. Go check that out. It's on YouTube, kids. Sock's On or Off podcast. Check out. Excuse me. That was wild. Go check out the Classic Wolf podcast, kids. That's from the boy Big Rob, sweet baby Rob, the sexiest mullet wearing Native American I've ever met in my entire life. My brother, my man, and my heterosexual life mate, man. Go check him out. He's amazing. As well, kids, check out So Let's Talk About podcast. Soul Tap, that's my wife's podcast. If you guys have not checked that out, go check that out. They haven't dropped any episodes recently, but check it out anyway, man. They'll get back to it whenever my wife feels like it. Check out the Oki podcast, kids. Always a phenomenal podcast ran by Russell Sun Eagle. Macnez podcast, always a phenomenal podcast about movies. I'm trying to make sure I don't forget anything. Toke Signals, they smoke weed and talk about stuff, kids. What a great time. SF, am I forgetting anything? King Castro X Gaming on Twitch and Kick, kids. I don't know how serious I take doing the Kick thing, but I take Twitch pretty serious. I play games. Go ahead.
I mean, there's also the podcast I run over with the joint channel.
There it is.
I'm also on Red Shirts Remastered.
Mm-hmm.
I am one of 4 Red Shirts. And we have a podcast that we try to release weekly on Wednesdays over on Red Shirts Remastered on YouTube called Rambling Red Shirts, where we talk about a lot of geeky, nerdy news.
I think I talked over you when you said Red Shirts Remastered, kids, on Twitch. They got YouTube. They got all that stuff going. Check them out. Also, they have socials, so follow them up. Yeah, I wanted to make sure they heard Red Shirts Remastered. Because
I believe it's at Red Shirts Remastered everywhere except for Twitter/X, because that is, I believe, RSR Remastered or
Definitely.
RS Remastered.
Well, kids, without further ado, This has been a wonderful episode, SF. Thank you so much, my brother. Kids, until next time, go listen to some old episodes. Read some comics. There's a comic out there for you. I will continue to ramble if I don't get out of here, kids. So I love you, SF. Again, thank you. Until next time, kids, collect something and have some fun. We're out. Bye. Yes, sir.
Woo. See you all later.